Good morning. It's Tuesday, May 6th. Everybody had a good weekend. We are going to take some tests or do a relook with our council on H167. We've asked Council O'Grady to come in and just refresh us on this. And I think we're going to see what we can do to possibly pass this bill out if the committee so desires to do that. And so with that, Council O'Grady, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Michael.
Do you want anything on the screen or not?
Probably if you could, Council, because we don't have it on the, we don't have it on our.
On this.
Can you put it on the?
I will do that. It'll take me.
No problem. Then we have time. Yep.
Okay.
That'll save 4 trees.
Okay.
Linda, did you send me a Zoom link today?
I did not. I'll send that to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll need your numbers.
All right, there we go. Thank you.
So H167 is passed by the House, is an act establishing the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters grant program with the Agency of Agriculture Food Markets. So the Vermont Food Bank has been running the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters program for a few years now. And it's been funded kind of on a one-time basis in the big bill each year. What this bill would do would establish a grant program at the Agency of Agriculture to formalize the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters program and the grants that would be available to that program from the Agency of Agriculture. So you'll see in section 1, there's a findings section about how food insecurity in Vermont and the country has decreased in recent years after it decreased during COVID. But there's increased access to produce, and produce improves health outcomes for individuals. For local food purchased from Vermont farms, every dollar spent contributes an additional 60 cents for the local economy. The food bank has been administering the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters program since 2018, injecting money into the ag economy with its purchases. General Assembly should ensure the continued operation of the program by the food bank by establishing a grant program at the Agency of Ag to provide ongoing annual appropriations to the program. Then you see the establishment of the program. It's in an existing program for effectively assistance or development. And at the agency, there would be the definition of local foods. That is a very involved definition. It is based on the type of food, but effectively the food has to have been grown, produced, or processed in Vermont, or a majority of it in Vermont. There is created at the agency the program will provide grants to the food bank, purchase local food directly from Vermont farms to distribute through the food bank's distribution channels, and to offer sub-grants to the food bank's network partners to buy directly from local farms of all sizes. So the food bank won't necessarily be doing all the purchases themselves. They would be offering sub-grants to partners to do some of the necessary purchasing. You'll see the two types of sub-grants to network partners to buy directly from local farms of all sizes, a variety of ag commodities and products, and then to buy directly from local farms of all sizes with the focus on providing culturally preferred foods or local relationships. The food bank will be reporting to you after consultation with the Agency of Ag on or before March 1st. Regarding implementation and administration of the program. It includes the total amount of food purchased with grants from the program, total number of farms purchased from, total number of sites where food purchased under the program was distributed, and if grants from the program were used to purchase farm shares, the total number of shares. Page 3, lines 10 through 14, this is basically confidentiality provision for those who receive assistance under the program. Their identity of individual persons, households, or businesses will not be disclosed to avoid a disincentive to participate. You will see page 3, line 15 through 19, that there's a section 3 that the program does not need to be implemented unless there is funding in the fiscal year 2026 from the general fund for the specific purposes described in section 2. Your Senate version of the big bill had $500,000 for a grant to the food bank for the Feeding Vermonters program. So it would be effective. And then the act takes effect July 1, 2024.
So appropriations already appropriated the money and just wait for this bill.
Yes, I mean, appropriations in the past has issued one-time money to Vermont Food Bank for Vermonters Feeding Vermonters, and then let the food bank do it on their own. This is formalizing that program to, as the findings say, help ensure that there is an annual appropriation for Vermonters Feeding Vermonters because of the benefits that it provides to those in need and to farms.
The only question, so it says the majority of food and grown here. And I sometimes hate that ambiguity. Well, I mean, what, 51%?
Well,
I would want.
it's not that ambiguous when you look at the 3 pages that define how to define local. And so I worked on this with the Attorney General probably about 10 years ago now, when there were things being sold from the state that you can still buy in the state, but this allows for some enforcement. The big one was this thing called Vermont curry from Japan. And it's not, doesn't have any contact with Vermont at all. And so there was, concerns about consumer protection, consumer information. And so this definition was, developed. It said, for the purpose of this chapter and rules adopted under it, local Vermont, locally grown or made in Vermont, and any substantially similar term shall have the following meaning based on the type of food or food products. For food products that are raw agricultural products, local to Vermont means it was exclusively grown or tapped in Vermont, is not milk, was derived from an animal that was raised for a substantial period of its lifetime in Vermont, is milk, where a majority of the milk was produced from Vermont animals, or is honey produced by Vermont colonies located exclusively in Vermont when all nectar was collected. So let's talk about why it's not just, it's only produced in Vermont. So for the animals, sometimes animals are imported in from outside, and so they live the majority of their life here, but they're not living their entire life here. Milk, the co-ops have members that are in New York, and one or two in Massachusetts. So there, you can say that the milk that's being produced here is exclusively from Vermont farmers. So it is the majority of the milk that the co-ops process is from Vermont farmers, but there are non-Vermont farms in the co-ops that are producing milk in Vermont. So that's why those two distinctions were made. And then for products that are processed food, local to Vermont means the majority of the ingredients are raw ag products that are local to Vermont. The product meets one or both of the following criteria. The product was processed in Vermont, or the headquarters of the company that manufactures the product is located in Vermont. So the majority of the raw ingredients have to be from Vermont. Product has to have been processed in Vermont, or the headquarters of the company that manufactures the product is located in Vermont. There are some products that are a majority of Vermont ingredients, but they might be processed in another state. And so this allows them to be treated as Vermont products at the headquarters of
And we had that a while ago when we brought the sunflower seed oil. I think it was grown in Vermont, but then he took it to New Hampshire to process it.
Yeah.
Because that's where the press was.
And then for bakery products, beverages, or unique food products, the product meets two or more of the following. The majority of the ingredients are raw ag products that are local to Vermont. Substantial transformation of the ingredients in the product occurred in Vermont, or the headquarters of the company that manufactures the product is located in Vermont. So we really went around the table on this one and trying to get to a way to not exclude foods that have some variation because of where their supply comes from, and where they have to process because of the uniqueness of the product. But focusing on the product being the ingredients being raw ag products that are local to Vermont. So that's what the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters grant program will focus on: food that meets that definition, and farms that produce that food or those food products. And the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters have been doing that, but this will now formalize it. I don't know if it will become part of base. Maybe it becomes part of base. Maybe it continues one time. That's a decision for both the administration and your appropriations committees. But it's possible. But it would be an ongoing program.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, Michael, I was going to ask you that. Does the bill represent a change in the way the funding's done, whether it's one time or base? But you kind of just answered that. It's still not.
It's still one time. It was
Yeah.
one time in the Senate passed appropriations bill, and I because it wasn't in base to begin with this year, it's not going to be in base this year. How it goes forward, I think that's a decision for your appropriations committees and for the administration. it could, but it's not guaranteed to be. I mean, it might be easier to just be able to account for this on a one-time basis each year. So I'm probably not the person to talk to about how that's going to play out in the future.
I also don't see any language to elucidate what the base decision would be in terms of the grants. It just says grant. So is that up to the secretary to decide, or the agency, or are there parameters?
Which grant? The grant from the agency of ag to the food bank?
Yes.
There are parameters for grants. It's an administrative bulletin. It's either 3.5 or 5. I can't remember which. There's all kinds of terms. This isn't going to be like, for example, the Farm and Forestry Security Fund, where the House explored the ways to make that assistance as easy as possible.
Right.
There's something in the grant guidance that allows for beneficiary payments, and you don't have to do all the grant conditions and reporting and etc. So that's what they did for that. This is still a grant. This is still a full grant program. They're going to have to, they won't get $500,000 right away, because under the bulletin, they hold back a certain percentage to ensure that you're meeting all the conditions of the grant. And so that will be, administrative agencies have very significant requirements under that grant program. Requirements.
The other piece for me was the confidentiality aspect. Is that something we normally do with grants?
No, but you do normally do it for food assistance, whether or not it's before universal meals, I should say. Before universal meals, when there were school children that were eligible for meals programs, you didn't make their identities known in the reporting from school to school or from statewide about who was receiving assistance, because it was thought to be, there were thoughts that if it was made public, that people wouldn't apply, and even if you did apply, then there would be a stigma attached to the student. So generally, you have held that information back. Plus, there's a provision in 6 VSA 60, which says the agency has this discretion to hold back that identifying information for certain programs that they run. So,
Thank you.
Really, process. Does it limit, like, you can bring stuff in from other states and process it and call it a Vermont product? Does that make sure that doesn't happen? Because when you said that, and what is processed in Vermont?
So for the processed foods, the majority of the ingredients are raw ag products that are local to Vermont. And so it says the majority because there's like Leonard, right? If you're going to be making something that has ascorbic acid, or you're going to need to get that from that.
Well, it's like if they produce something that's Vermont processed almonds.
Right.
Almonds aren't common to Vermont, so it's like, well, that's not this.
The majority of the ingredients have to be raw products. And remember, raw products have to be exclusively from Vermont, or if they're milk, the majority, or if they're honey, that has to be, so.
Thank you.
Ready? Yeah. Anyone in the room want to comment?
Just to say thank you for considering.
Tell me who you are.
Oh, sorry, Amy Schallenberger for the Vermont Food Bank, and Michelle is here from the food bank. If you have any specific questions, she runs the program at the food bank.
And Honor Horton with Hunger Free Vermont, and just to say that we strongly support this effort. And that we have a lot of farms in Vermont who are also struggling. We have farmers in Vermont who themselves need Three Squares Vermont to make their own family food budgets. And we really strongly support using Vermont farm products to promote food security around our state.
And that was said by who?
Honor Horton with Hunger Free Vermont.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on the screen? Anybody on it? Okay. How does the committee feel about doing a vote? Everybody heard what they want to hear?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Sure, I'll move that we vote page 160 on the paper.
Okay, wait a second, so I would ask the clerk vote.
So we'll go to approach, but as I just said,
There's 500 hours.
there's already $500,000 in the budget for it.
I'll put the rest in it.
All right. All right. This is for Bill H 167. Senator Conlon.
Yeah.
Senator Heffernan, yes. Senator Majors,
Yes.
Senator Plunkett,
Yes.
Senator Ingalls.
Yes.
We voted it out 5-0.
Cool. Who wants to report that?
I guess I haven't done any reporting.
There's only one person here.
Yeah. I knew it had to happen at some point. Yes.
Okay, well, Michael, thank you again, once again. Appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you.
And, if there's any more to come before the committee this morning?